That's right, the pandemic has left me with leftover honey. But here's what I want to talk to you about today, is panel gaps. I want to first show you this debris that's here. See this dirt? We're going to come back to why that's important, but the main thing I want you to remember is that when you are hearing these stories about the Model Ys and their panel gaps, if you are a new owner or taking delivery, you absolutely should refuse delivery. There's no excuse for that. And the reason why is the same reason why in the 80s, the American car industry made some real bona fide garbage. It's because people would not hold them to account. They would not hold them equal to the Japanese cars at the time. And as a result, the American car companies kept making garbage because they knew people would buy them just because they were buying American. Now Tesla's in the same place. They're an early lead on a lot of this stuff, but they need to be held to account so that they don't get fanboys just buying crap because they're Tesla. They'll never improve. Now pardon that this is dirty, but this is a 2014. This is my S85 and its VIN is around 40,000. And I just want to show you a panel gap that I have on the front that nobody's ever been able to rectify. And I can not quite put that finger in. I could probably get my pinky in. Yeah, I can get my pinky in pretty easily. And there was a whole bunch of cars built around this time period that have this same gap, and no matter who I've talked to at Tesla, they could never get rid of it. But let me show you the defects that it had from an appearance standpoint when it was new. I didn't have any recourse. If you go back on my blog to around that time, you will see that I took delivery at a Home Depot. So there's a gap there, and there's a gap here. There's a gap here, but again, this is an early car, and it was at Home Depot, so I didn't have a whole lot of recourse. And it was fairly common at the time. I kind of knew what we were getting into. One of the other things on the early cars, especially this gray, was paint matching. I don't know if you can tell. This is a factory bumper, original. That is the paint, and it is a very slightly different color. You can see that or not. And that was fairly common at the time as well. I had to move inside because they are doing work on the house below me and a home inspection on the house above me, so there's a lot of chatter going on outside and hammers and scaffold and things like that. But I wanted to continue this discussion as to what was expected quality in 2014 versus what you should be expecting in 2020. Now, like I showed you earlier, there were some paint match issues. There's other little fitment things that I had here and there in the car, and I'll show you what a few of those were, only for comparison's sake, because 2014, Tesla had not made very many cars. If you count the Roadsters, they were still in the first 45,000 cars when I got mine. So I didn't have very high expectations for quality, and I knew there would be some misses here and there, and as long as it was in the ballpark, we kind of let it go, because that was part of the charm, I guess, of getting such an unusual car at the time. But this is 2020. And given the multiples of their price to earnings ratio on their stock price and the amount of production they're doing now in dedicated factories with dedicated sub-assembly lines for a lot of the parts, like the seats and things like that, are made in-house, they can't be blaming some of these problems on their suppliers, because they are the supplier in many cases. So I do believe that you should be holding them very much accountable for any kind of quality lapse, because that is the only way they're going to get better. So it's probably no easier to see now in the garage light than it was outside that the front bumper is a slightly lighter color gray than the rest of the car. Now at the time I took delivery, the back bumper was also a lighter color of gray. That bumper has since been replaced because, well, we got rear-ended by somebody who wasn't paying attention, which you can find the video of that on the blog and on this channel also. But I think that if you see the paint match on the replacement bumper, especially when I highlight it with the light, sometimes it looks dead on, and then other times, different lighting conditions, it's like really far off. And I think it's all about the way the flake lays in the paint. See, then it looks on, and now we're off. That is not a problem really with the body shop. I think they really tried their very best. I go into that on my blog, and I didn't even notice for sure that it was off until a couple days after I'd gotten the car back. But I do believe that's part of the reason why Tesla discontinued this color. Now I will show you one other defect related to collision repair. Well, it's not really a defect, I guess, at that point. So the whole side here was replaced. This is not the original door because I got hit, and then that damage continued into this panel here, and they had to repaint the front door. Just as an example that it's not the body shop's fault, is the paint match is like dead on. It is amazingly well done. But because this is a replacement door, I do have, you see that, a very slight variation here at the very bottom. Maybe there you can see it. In that this door sticks out a little bit more than this door. They're not even. Now that was not present when I took delivery of the car. It's probably something that could be adjusted slightly, probably by pulling in this bottom edge a little bit, but I didn't worry about it too much. As far as alignment issues, my chrome trim was off on this side, and I believe, if I recall correctly, it was also off on the other side, but I kind of adjusted them myself. Rangers did it at one point, and then I did it again myself. This is not hard. If you get an S, it literally just pries off, and what they put underneath here is like a felt piece, and they'll layer that up to make it match. I didn't have any of the other problems as far as that were common at the time, which was in this area. I did have leaks in the pano roof, a few of those, which I described in my 50,000 mile update. And I don't have my key on me at the moment, but that is not the original dash cover. The original dash cover had a very obvious like ripple in it. This is a replacement. Sometimes it seems like it has a little bit of a mark right about here, but most of the time I don't see it. In fact, I couldn't identify it now if I tried, because I was looking at that during an earlier drive today. All right, so having said that, you're going, so what? And I get it. But I want to go back to this point about 2020 quality. This is not a new company anymore. They have made several 100,000 cars. They still only have a handful of models, and 2 of those are really closely related. It is not okay for them to be pushing bad quality product on the customer. And I have heard about many people being pressured at delivery to just let things go because Tesla will fix it later. They may not. It doesn't matter if you get it in writing. You're still kind of at the mercy of the company to A, have the manpower to do it, and the willingness. And even if they have both those things, there's no guarantee that they're ever going to get it right. And even if they keep trying, it's a huge hassle to go into the service center every couple of weeks or every couple of months to try and get things fixed that should have been done properly at the factory, at quality control. And I know a lot of people are all hung up on the mission of Tesla and saving the world and all of this nonsense. First of all, I don't buy into any of that because the cars are inherently, well, it's a whole nother rant, but they're, in my opinion, inherently bad for the environment because they encourage people to live in suburbs, which, we are decades away from the suburbs being something that's sustainable. Just talking about grocery delivery. Everything's coming on diesel trucks, and that's not changing anytime soon. Whereas when you're in the city, it's a lot closer and a lot more people go to the same store. That's a whole nother thing. The point is that Tesla needs to be held accountable, and there needs to be some transparency as to when the repairs are done or not. I think a lot of cars have been reassigned. They get rejected by one customer because of issues, and then they just try to give it to another customer. And that's not okay either. So the only way that Tesla succeeds is if they're held to the same standard you would hold Honda or BMW or Audi or any of the other companies that are eventually going to be gunning for this market share. Because you can bet when those companies get to the market of electric vehicles, and they will get there, that they will be very careful about their quality. They will not undermine their brand. They will try to maintain all of their brand's reputation in the quality of their products and in the testing of their products, whereas Tesla's a little bit like, hey, we'll send some cars out there and then discover that, the door handles freeze shut and things like that, and then adjust on the fly, which is great unless you're one of the early owners, right? So if you are scheduled delivery or you've recently taken delivery, you need to make sure that you're getting the product you paid for. Don't let them just tell you that it's a Tesla and that's the way they are, that it's within spec, that it's okay, because it's not. And if they have that attitude, they're going to become the General Motors of electric vehicles, or, as many Chryslers as I had. Frankly, the Chrysler quality, not so great. Mainly got them because the depreciation was so high. It was good for us. But you need to be bold about that. You're using your hard-earned money, and I get that you're trying to support electric vehicles and everything, but There's no excuses. They're the most valuable car company on the planet. They need to start acting like it. And by that, I don't mean telling the customers to take it or leave it. That is the very, very wrong approach for them to be taking. So that's my little rant on Tesla quality. As for my car, you know, I had some rattles. I had some stuff, and the Rangers came and they fixed stuff, and other things were fixed at the service center, and then other problems were caused at another service center, and all of the things that come with owning an early production Tesla. I exempt a lot of our experience from what I would consider to be passable now. If we replace this car or we get another Tesla, we will have very different expectations for how the car is built and for the service we get afterward, as opposed to what we had with this car. We didn't even have a service center. It was on the other side of the state, and there was only one back when we bought. So, yeah, my expectations now are very, very different. Having said that, I will say that the Pittsburgh Service Center, which is here in Wexford, by all accounts, including my own experience, is excellent. That is probably one of the best service centers that I've heard of based on anecdotal evidence. And kudos to those folks for holding themselves to a standard that I think is higher than what Tesla's corporate policy tends to be. That's it for me for this little rant, and thank you for bearing with me.